We start with the focus state tools, which are the foundational tools of EOS. If you don't have those, nothing else works. And a lot of people would like to get all of them done at one time, but we say you need to take these 5 tools, master them to the point that you can teach the people below you so that they understand that this is the system we're running on.
Talking about mastery of tools, and that strikes a deep chord with me just because of backgrounds in martial arts and music, and also just workouts I've been doing where if you don't get the core tools, the foundational tools, if you're using EOS, it's very difficult to add all the other things on. You were just saying you run into teams that are ready to just blow forward into all the different tools, but you guys want to make sure that the foundations are really mastered. Am I saying that accurately?
Yes. And our job as implementers, because there's a lot of people that can read the book and just dive right in because they're like, oh, this will save this one little thing. But there's so much more with EOS besides just the focus state tools. And we do this we are very intentional when we teach EOS, when we implement this. We start with the focus state tools, which are the foundational tools of EOS. If you don't have those, nothing else works. And a lot of people would like to get all of them done at one time, but we say you need to take these 5 tools, master them to the point that you can teach the people below you so that they understand that this is the system we're running on.
In the Taekwondo system I studied, you can't get past green belt until you start teaching others the foundational skills. So, just for those listening who aren't familiar with the 5 tools, could you just list those for us?
Yeah. So when we go through the initial setup with EOS, we talk about the first day is our focus day. And we're talking about hitting the ceiling, which has the 5 leadership abilities. That leads us into creating the VTO. Okay. Then we talk about the accountability charts. VTO is the first one. We finish the VTO after the 3rd day, but that is your plan of where you want to take the business, who you are and in your business. And then on the first day, we have to dig into your business and start figuring out what's not working in order for you to achieve your vision. So we dig into the accountability chart because that is the structure of your organization. That takes the longest on the first day because we are creating the structure for your business from the leadership team. And then if you as a team can take homework to build out the rest of your team, build out the seats, put in the 3 to 5 roles that this person has to achieve, and then put the right person in the right seat. And if you don't have that, that's an issue. Or if you're in that seat, that's probably an issue. So it also helps us create the accountability, the issues list. And it's really critical that we get to the point of understanding that so we can understand the structure is what drives the business. If you don't have the right people in the right seats, you're never going to achieve your vision. And the people component in the EOS model is one of the weakest at all times. People are coming and going. You don't have the right people. You don't have enough people. That's always a big challenge. We start with that.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question because I may have misrepresented how you guys do it. So you do the VTO before the accountability chart?
No, I'm confused that. The first day we're together on focus day, we talk about the 5 leadership abilities that get you stuck. That leads us into creating the VTO, but after we learn the focus day tools. But the 5 foundational tools, the first one is the VTO, but we get to that in day 2 and 3. And I just mentioned that because that is a huge component. People don't realize why they are stuck in their business and how they can get unstuck. Once we start getting them to think that way, it clears their head so we can start creating the structure for the business and do the focus day tools. And by vision building day 1, they start having a sense of and a handle of their business. So they can actually start creating their accountability chart because we have to do it in phases. Otherwise, it's way too much. We come in with a vision and they might say in vision building, we're going to do 100 million in 5 years. And the team's, I don't know how we're going to do that. We can't even make $200,000 right now. So we have to identify what's not working in the business, give them tools to start figuring out how they can fix the business before they can say, we're going to do X, right? Let's be clear of what we're working with under the hood before we can say we're going to go run this race, right? Let's be clear on that. So we talk about traction first, vision second.
Gotcha.
Okay. Because again, The visionary or the founder might say, we need to be 10 million or 100 million, whatever it is. And the team is, we are struggling. I don't know why we're struggling. Let's find out why we're struggling. Let's look at how we are stuck. Let's talk about our structure. We probably don't have the right structure. Probably don't have the right people in the right seats. Probably people don't even know why they're even here. That's why accountability chart takes the longest in the first day. It could take up to 6 hours. I've heard a long time, a lot of hours getting the accountability chart because the team has to agree, yes, this is the structure for the leadership team. We give them a sample structure and we say, okay, let's create the one that works for you for the next 6 to 12 months. We're only talking about a year. We keep their mind from going crazy because they said, if this is the only structure you'll have the rest of your life, they can't go there. They underestimate the long term. So if we can keep them 6 to 12 months, we can say, here's the structure. Who's the sales marketing people or person? Who's the ops person or people, finance person or agency or whatever it is? Who's the integrator if you even have one? Who's the visionary if you have one? Let's call it all out and then put people in those seats if we agree they're the right people in the right seats. So a couple of good things happen there. It could be good, it could be bad. Depends on your perspective. If you have the right people in or the wrong seat, meaning you love them, you love working with them, they're just in the wrong seat because they were inappropriately hired, maybe you can find a seat for them. The other one is wrong person, right seat. They hit their numbers, they're amazing at doing their job, you just don't like working with them. They're just not a good fit in the company. You know it, everybody else knows it, and it's time to make a change. So we're getting clarity of the structure of the business and the people within it. Then we talk about rocks. How do we prioritize our time for the next 60 to 90 days? Because our first 3 days together is the learning phase of EOS, learning the foundational tools, creating the VTO. And that takes about 60 to 90 days, depending on their calendar. We set rocks, we make them prioritize. What are the 3 to 5 things, 3 to 7, but we try to keep them less is more on this. What are the 3 to 7 things that we need to get done this quarter? Absolutely, they have to get done. And then we start seeing their prioritization and what creeps in and takes over after those 30 to 60 to 90 days. And then we talk about the VTO and then the chart and then rocks. And then we talk about the level 10 meeting. How do we check ourselves every week to see if we're on track? How are your meetings? And our very first phone call, I'm like, hey, tell me about your meetings. And they'll say, what meeting? Or last time we had one, it was terrible. Or it's pretty consistent, but we don't get anything done. So it tells me where they're at in the meeting phase. In the level 10, it gives them structure and framework and rules of engagement so they can say, this is how you have to do it. I need you to practice because this is going to be challenging to get everybody on the same page. Someone's got to lead it. Someone has to be in charge of the time, taking notes and so forth. And they've probably never seen that. Once we tell them, here's the structure, here's the agenda, this is how you do it, start doing that next week. Tell me how it goes. And then the last thing is the scorecard. We take a first pass at the scorecard because they probably never had KPIs or metrics, whatever you want to call it, or measured themselves. And because we do the accountability chart first and the roles in those seats, we can probably quantify couple of those roles in every seat and pull that into a scorecard. So again, we do that intentionally first because sometimes they just don't know how to measure, but we give them rules. Everything's measured in EOS. We say, scorecard has to be mostly leading indicators of activity. If you make this many phone calls to get this many clients, the revenue will follow. And we have started changing their mindset on that. Once we establish working towards the VTO, the accountability chart, rocks, level 10 meeting, and the first pass of the scorecard, that's the first day. Okay. And we talk about that. We give them an agenda when we do the free 90-minute meeting to give them a sense of this is what the day looks like. It's going to be a lot of work. There's going to be some homework. Once they go back into their business about 30 days, they start practicing these. And that's intentional because it's a spaced learning process. I want them to go practice, fail, figure it out, struggle. So they come back in vision building day one. The first part of the day, we say, how'd it go? Tell me what worked and didn't work. And then I get a chance to reteach them because there will be things they missed. Or I couldn't build out the rest of my team because I got stuck here. Awesome. Let me reteach you. The first 3 days together, we are on a road of mastering these 5 tools. Because if they can master these 5 tools, they can teach the people below them, the rest of the company, which is what I want, so they can be a self-managed team and they can graduate and run on EOS. If they can't teach people below them, like you mentioned before, I'm not confident they actually know the tool, how to use it, what it looks like, when to use it when you're IDSing,
Yeah.
because that's key as well. And again, we do that first so we can start when they do level 10. So, oh, we're really stuck on one issue. We solved one issue last week. I'm like, that's okay. You'll get better at it because we'll see where they're struggling. We can help them out and reteach the tools. Ideally, by the end of the vision building day 2, they've got the tools down and they're talking with their teams about rolling out EOS. That's ideal. I've had clients wait a year. Clients wait 2 years because they're changing their teams. They're not ready to. They're not comfortable yet. And I check in every quarter and every annual. I'm like, when are you going to roll this out? Because it's on your 3-year picture. You said you want this throughout the whole company within 3 years. And your processes better be written down too, because that's going to be critical as well, because they need the process to make sure they're actually doing it right.
Yeah. I've seen people presume that they have it down and then not have it down. I've seen other people dive in and really lean into it and be very intentional. We had someone just recently leaned into everything for about 3 months and then started rolling it out. But they're using all of the tools, all the foundational tools, I'll say. And that's how they're framing everything in the company. It's like, we have our issues. Is it with the measurable? Is it with the accountability chart, as you mentioned? Is there an issue with how a rock is worded, et cetera? And it's just, I really like the simplicity of that, and I like the holistic nature of it. I think really helps people. It's been decades now. I've been working with people in organizations. When I say people, like from large enterprises to small businesses, on goal setting and getting stuff done and all the derivations that you want to talk about it, distilling it to this set of principles, I think, and looking at how these different foundational tools fit. It's so powerful for people. It's really one of my favorite things about EOS. We were talking initially, what got us started with this was some of the tools that are lower down on the toolbox chart, lower down just how they're arranged. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but Delegate and Elevate's one that's come up a lot in conversations recently. Cash flow drivers, People Analyzer, that one comes up right away, I think. But
Yes.
where do you like to go first once the foundational tools are mastered?
So it's a great question, because again, you have people that want to get it all done. Like they feel like, if I get it all done, I've done everything the right way. And it's sometimes too much is way too much. I want them to start thinking how this tool will fit into my business. So they don't have to become EOS. The EOS gets to work for them. So they can take the tool in its originally designed and actually make it work for them and say, yes, I understand how to use this tool in my particular business with this framework. So we teach the 5 foundational tools, which we have a toolbox that has about, I think it's 27 tools now, something like that. Obviously, the first 20 are in the toolbox, and then we have another set of tools. But by Vision Building Day 2, we check to make sure, are we clear of mastering these 5 tools? By the end of VB2, we have Vision Building Day 2. Let me clarify, because I go with the acronyms there. Vision Building Day 2, we finished the VTO. So now we say we have now moved from focus day tools to foundational tools. VTO, accountability chart should be complete with open seats, which all our issues. That is fully baked out, where everybody's good to go in that for the next 6 to 12 months. We set great rocks. We measured ourselves from focus day until Vision Building Day 2 and how we accomplished those rocks. We took learnings away, and then we set rocks for the next quarter so we can go execute. We have a great level 10 cadence. We're pretty confident we're running it on time, same day, same time, same agenda, starts on time, ends on time. And the person running it is getting what they want. They're IDSing fairly effectively. And then we give them a little bit more tools on IDS, using what tool would this issue solve? And they have to start thinking that way. Oh, that's right. That goes to the accountability chart. Oh, that's really Tom's issue. Why isn't Tom in here talking about, why didn't somebody talk to Tom about this? And then getting them to think about using the tools rather than recreating the wheel. And then their scorecard should be pretty well baked out. Sometimes it's 3 months to 2 years on the scorecard, but that's okay, because I want the leadership team to create a scorecard that works for them. And then they're going to start seeing, oh, that's really 3 of those. That's really marketing. That's really marketing departments scorecard. We should push that down. Oh, they're not doing EOS yet. We probably should roll out EOS first to them. They can start doing this. So it gives us points to talk about how we're going to roll this out at the end of vision building day 2. At the first quarterly, we start seeing how well they did their first quarter. How'd you guys do? How'd you everybody in the team do with what we talked about after VB2? We set rocks. You say you got the accountability chart nailed down, got rocks, you're doing great level 10s. We have a great scorecard, accountability charts, everything's working well. VTO is complete. Everybody agrees upon it. We go over the VTO again to make sure we still agree. And then in between, before setting the next set of rocks, we go over and say, where were we when we started? And where are we now? And how we measure our strength in each of the 6 key components. We do that to make sure we're seeing progress. If they haven't finished the accountability chart, if they haven't been consistent with their level 10, if their scorecard's a mess, we will reteach that tool before we talk about the rest of the tools. I taught before, we don't give somebody a rock that can't swim. We need to make sure they are ready to take on the next. They feel good about what they've worked on. They've learned what they've learned, and they're ready for the next thing. Once we feel they are mastered the tools and starting to roll out EOS to their people, now they know they get it, then we'll bring up the toolbox and we'll go over each of the tools and disciplines. And I will ask them, which one of these have we talked about? Which ones do you know and don't know, and how to use them? And then we look at their scores. And again, if they all check the foundational tools, I'm pretty sure they got it. If somebody says, I don't know what that means, I'm like, yeah, we need to reteach that. But if they all check the right boxes and we have the ones that are not talked about unchecked, I know that they're using them. They're talking to their people. And if they're rolling it out to their people, I'm pretty sure they got it. Then we'll go over the rest of the tools, and delegate and elevate we talk about briefly in VB1 and again in VB2, because that comes up as an issue as they start, I would say, looking under the hood in their business and start realizing how many things they are really doing that's not their job, or things they're doing because no one else is doing, or technology can do it, because they're also getting some of their time back and they can start slowing down and seeing things. And I bring it up a couple of times because I'm like, people are going to, when you roll this out, your team's going to say, oh, this is just more work. When it's just the opposite. It's giving you clarity to do less work better. But when that happens, let's do a time assessment with the delegate elevate and start getting people in their unique ability. Because more than likely, they're probably not, or you're not. So it's a great tool to use when somebody says, I don't have enough time to get my rocks done. Really? Tell me more about that. I think you should do delegate elevate. Tell me how that worked out and tell me what you thought of. And every single time someone realizes they're doing somebody else's job, they're holding on to something they think they can only do better, or they are doing the things that aren't moving the business forward. They are doing the emails and the phone calls and the chatting or whatever they're doing rather than focusing on the priorities.
This is one of the areas where I think the EOS take is interesting, because there's some aspect of just productivity skills that are teachable. I like the idea that if you get things placed with a person that they want to work on it, they've already got some skill at it. So in EOS vernacular, it's the get it, wants it, and has the capability to do it. Those things are just going to get done more easily. It's actually, I think it's just it's a clever way to handle productivity, in my view.
Yeah. And again, it'll be the first or second quarterly meeting if we have to reteach a tool. So that's the fourth or fifth time we're together with the team. And sometimes we're just knowing them. Sometimes there's a new person in the room. And hopefully they gave them traction, or what the heck is EOS is onboarding, and they're catching up. I don't expect them to know the tools, but I will slow down my session to reteach the tools for them in that session and say, call me if you have any questions.
Is this the leadership team, or is this their leadership direct reports? Do you guys do both?
If they add in the person in the leadership team. And ideally, the integrator would be doing that. They would be the one onboarding them and getting them up to speed. But when the integrator's in the session with me, they get to participate. You can't do both lead and participate at the same time. So they get to participate, which allows them to also see how the team's responding and what's going on with the whole room, just like I do. But they get to actually participate, and we say it's healthier for the team when the integrator is sitting in a seat as part of the team rather than running like a session like he does a level 10 or she runs a level 10, because it's a different dynamic. Okay. And when they're in the seat, they get to be the integrator, the tiebreaker. They get to have that discussion during IDS. And typically a facilitator just sits there and watches and takes notes of what's going on with the team on the health side, things like that. That's the benefit of having an implementer in the room, so they can actually sit down and participate. And the new person, the other nuance of that, a new person in the room is amazing because they'll be asking like, why are you doing it that way? And if I can see people in the room saying, we did the accountability chart first because this, and I'm like, oh, you guys got it. So again, there's a nuance and there's the subtleties of actually running the room that you can start seeing that people are actually talk. And at the end of the day, the end game there is to make them have peer-to-peer accountability. They talk to each other and not to me. They are working on their own stuff, and we're just directing them and getting them unstuck and getting them to make sure they're seeing what's working, what's not. So new people are amazing because they sit there. I have no expectations. I just want to listen. I'm like, nope, I need you to participate because you might be the clarifier here that says, that does not make any sense. I came from your competitor and we don't do it that way. And I'm like, why don't you guys tell them why we do it that way? And that's the best way to get and start saying, and maybe they aren't doing it the right way or the simplest way. And that's also a great discussion. So it's always good around that. But to answer the question, we can't dive into all the tools because again, they're still figuring out accountability chart, rocks, so forth. And sometimes their level 10s are haphazard. And I have one that they have no integrator, so sometimes it doesn't even happen. So that's really a need. The only question is, when are you going to fill that seat? Or who's going to step up in that seat? And all those kind of questions, because we're trying to get them to get upright on the same track, working together, all going in the same direction and using the tools at the same time and changing their behavior, because they will go back to what they know and what they're comfortable with, which isn't always the most efficient for the company.
I think that's something I've seen when I'm looking. I've got the tools over here. Some of the ones that come up that I'll talk about, but don't know by their names as much. I'll talk about the principles that seem to align with these, but I noticed like the assistance track, for example. Can you talk about what that is a little bit and when that is appropriate to pull out?
Sure. And if you notice in the toolbox, the first three rows are the foundational tools or the disciplines within them, right? And by the first or second quarter, they should have checked all those boxes, things like that. And then the next two lines, the fourth and fifth lines, we talk about those as we go through the process. The new version of the toolbox, the assistance track is off the main toolbox now because that's as needed. That's when somebody does a delegate elevate, and we've been telling them for months they need an assistant. And they're like, yeah, I'll just do it myself. And we realize that they're holding the team back because they're still doing stuff that somebody else at $30 an hour should be doing, and they should be doing $100 an hour to work. And so we talk about that. And the assistant track is really simple. It allows them to just take one thing like their email. Here are the rules by delegating your email. The person, whatever you do, the person touches it once. I do this part, or I need you to do that part. So they take your email, they go through all your email, and they leave the stuff for you, but they take all the rest, like scheduling and follow-up, things like that, depending on what their job is. And then stuff left behind is for you to answer. So it cleans out your inbox so you can go do your work and not get stuck in doing all your email. My assistant, she's crystal clear of what she does in my practice. So she takes care of all my clients' responses unless I have to respond specifically. All my scheduling, all my travel, all that stuff. So I don't get stuck stopping my workday with a client and going over to American Airlines and trying to book a flight.
I think we booked this call between our assistants booked it, actually.
Yes, that's magic. And then but it takes time. It takes time for them to get my voice, understand. We have a process in place, but sometimes there's a nuance. They're like, oh, is this going to be virtual or in person? What did you talk to that person about that you forgot to tell me? Because I will forget, because if I'm talking to people, we forget. And when they get your voice and start saying, oh, you didn't mention it, but I looked on the calendar and you needed this before you went on your trip, I just put it there for you. That's when the magic happens. And then it tells you they can actually do more. But for me, it starts with the accountability chart. I put that down as her seat, her roles. And I had to let go of my email, my travel, part of my practice so she can manage the client into the practice. Her job is to get me in the room, and my job is to give her the debrief afterwards, and she takes care of the rest. My job is to also get clients. So once I get a client, it gets into the funnel, and then we have our places where it all go, where we interact, and we talk every week. But a lot of people have had bad experiences. I've had one too, a couple of them actually, where you get somebody and you jump on them, and then you're mad that they don't do your job, the job you want them, because you never told them what you want or needed. You never wrote it down. And I see that a lot with leaders. Once they lose that trust, they get burned that one time, they just won't do it again. And yet they're doing $25
I like to
work
tell
most
people,
of the time.
if you got into one fender bender, which you're probably going to get into, would you stop driving forever?
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny because they've seen people with great assistants and they're like, I wish I had one, but that's a fleet. And then they different. And the reality is it becomes really apparent when we write it down on the issues list that it keeps coming up, or they just are so overwhelmed. Like maybe the first step is getting an assistant. Let's take the stuff that's $25 an hour off your plate so you can focus on the big items and see what happens there. And obviously they start blossoming and getting in their unique ability, but that's a as needed tool. And that's a separate toolbox. But as you mentioned, the last two lines, we talk about LMA, clarity break, quarterly conversations, and 5 rules in one lump sum when we talk about LMA. This is when they are ready to talk about, if they are managing people, how do we manage people the EOS way, and how do we measure that? So we go through and give them information on that. We have measurement on that. We give them clarity of how well are you using the tools with your people, or even having quarterly conversation, and the 5 rules that just came out this year. 3-step process documenters when we talk about when they want to start doing their process. That could be the first year, it could be the second or third year, but it should be done within 3 years to document their process if they want to achieve their vision. 8 cash flow drivers, that comes up when there's the issue. One of the issues is cash flow, or they don't have somebody in the finance seat, and they get somebody in the finance seat. And it really comes down to digging into what do they have to either work on the top line or the bottom line in their business. And that could be typically with my clients, that's the second year. The first year is cleaning things up and getting things fixed and getting people. And then they start digging into getting a little bit, do they sell more or do they cut expenses? You know, and once they get that, I have a team that has a CFO. They don't need that. They're pretty much good on their finances. Majority of our clients either don't have a finance person or they give them reports and that's it. And this is a way for the team to get involved in what's actually going on in the business. Are we spending money that's actually giving us to revenue or helping us in the bottom line? What is the bottom line? What's a P&L? All those great questions that honestly, a lot of entrepreneurs don't know yet. And then the last 2 trust builders we do in the annual, and that's to build team health. And then Colby A Index is a personality. It's an index, but it measures how the team works together. And that typically we try to do around the annual, the first annual, or around before or after the annual, because we start 35% of the time, the leadership team changes in the first 6 months of this implementation. And about 85% of the time, the rest of the company changes. And they're going to start realizing who they are as a team because they start having more time of asking those kind of questions. Again, that's the framework. We ask them, what do you want to do? What makes sense for you? I have a team that wants to do Colby on their second quarterly. So
All those
I'm
tests
like,
are
okay,
fun.
let's go do that because that's what
I've
they
never
want.
taken one and not enjoyed it because you say, okay, here's a new way to think about things to me.
Yes. It simplifies and gives you a different perspective and also gives you ownership of what's going on in the business, because when you have that information and the understanding of those labels, then you're like, oh, now I know what's going on. And it just gives you a deeper sense of your impact in the business, what's really going on in the business. It also leads to great IDS because now they can start saying, if we do that, it's going to cost this, a cash flow driver, something like that. And the cash flow drivers are designed to identify up to 8 things they can do to change their top line or bottom line, and measure their success over 1 or 2 quarters. And it's like another scorecard item for them.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So you guys do that second vision building day. Did you say 60 days in?
So typically we talk to a client in the free 90-minute meeting and if they understand what we're trying to do with the model and the tools and the proven process, they all say, yes, I want to start. We schedule focus day. And then they go into their business after focus day for about 30 days or so to practice the tools. They come back for vision building day 1. We talk about what's working, what's not, retrain if we need to, start answering the questions in the VTO. Then they go back into their business for 30 more days or so, depending on the calendar. Some people can be there 30 days. Sometimes it might go up to 45 days. And then they come back for vision building day 2. We see what's working, what's not, reteach the tools on the way to mastery, finish the VTO. So typically it's 60 to 90 days for those 3 days.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'd like to say half of my clients have done it in 60, and I've had some that have done it over 90 because we got them in, they started in the middle of their quarter, and it worked out that way so they can get on the quarterly cadence in their time. So we're pretty flexible. We just also want to see how they manage their time about making the commitment, showing up, doing the work. And again, it isn't a seminar. We need them to learn the tools, practice, learn the tools, practice, come back in and ask questions. And then how do I do this with this employee? This is what the concept is. This is the context around that. Let me explain it to you so you can say, oh, that makes total sense. Then they're more capable of actually going to
do that work. Makes total sense. Where do you see one area that trips people up the most, where you find yourself reteaching it the most?
We can't move forward until they have the tools down, because with the mentality, they're going to roll this out to their teams and they need to understand it. And I did this earlier because the team said they're ready, because teams want to get things accomplished. They think getting them, checking the box is done, and it's not done. And the worst thing that could happen is we as implementers don't slow them down and say, we can't move forward because your accountability chart's not done. And we can't, so your scorecard's not done, because the scorecard, a lot of it comes to the accountability chart. And we're not calling out the consistency and saying your level 10s are not consistent. They have to be consistent for you guys to stay on track, and making sure they're doing the right things in the right cadence, because that's the foundation for the rest of the tools. You don't go and jump into LMA if you have no idea what the accountability chart looks like. So everything fits together, and we have to make sure they get very excited. They want to learn and they want to get everything checked off and done. And I said, this is changing the way you do business. So we might not finish the day on vision building day 1 or 2, because we have to stay here and fix the accountability chart. And that's okay, because that's going to help us do great work later on. There are times when we have a couple extra half a day to finish the VTO because we had to stop and reteach a tool. So I think to answer the question, making sure that the client does the work and we check on their progress. And if they're not progressing, we stop and reteach it. Also, on the other side, slow them down when they want to get it all done. This isn't one and done. And I have to tell them that and remind them that often. We say it 7 times before they hear it the first time, saying, this is going to be the way you run your business. This is the standard you're going to set for you and your people. This is how the business gets done here. And when you get it, it'll become simpler. It isn't easy, but it will get easier as we go through. Because the other part of this, next level down, is you roll this out to your people. If this is the 10th thing that you've brought into the business to run the business, they're going to roll their eyes and say, not again. But if you have a good story behind it and why we're doing what we're doing, the psychology behind, we do it this way for this reason, and you can paint the picture for them, they're more than likely going to be on board. Oh, more than likely, if they can see the VTO, now they're finally understanding what we're doing here and why we're doing it. For a lot of teams, it's actually bringing their people in and showing some transparency. But if we can eliminate that objection, the rollout goes so much better, because it comes up every time, and we say, how much have you told them? How often have you changed course in the middle of a quarter? Do you guys even have quarters? What's going on in the business? Let's start giving some structure here, and then we can start setting a standard, then we can start measuring
Yeah,
ourselves.
in the process of explaining that and telling that story, they're leveling up their leadership management and accountability, I think. That's the other thing I like about the team,
Yes. And they
right?
don't even know what that is yet, but we have to explain it, and we do so at the right time so they can see, oh, I really haven't been using the tools as I could. And that, again, all we do is try to put some light on and give them some insight so that they will get really good at it. And people that are really good at that, you've had great managers, had lousy managers.
Totally. Is there anything you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, again, there's a lot. And again, like I said before, this is meant to be implemented over time because it's a simple business operating system that gives you tools to solve your issues and help you get what you want. That being said, we're also changing human behavior and managing human energy. So that takes on a course of its own. And like I mentioned, we don't push the tools if they're not ready because we know they haven't done the foundational work yet. And again, we talked about in martial arts or in weightlifting or anything like that, you have to have good form before you start
1000%.
lifting heavy. And so it may be boring and it may be repetitive, but we're doing it for a reason. And I want to make sure you're good. So we do little things like every quarter we review the VTO to make sure we're all in agreement. If the leadership team's in agreement, more than likely the rest of the company is going to be in agreement, or at least they'll be seen as the same page. If not everybody can remember the core values in the leadership team, how do you think the rest of the company can remember the core values or are expected to remember the core values? Or the core values have a 4-page essay behind every single one of them, and it's so complex that no one's going to remember them. So keeping it simple, remembering we need to have agreement. If we don't feel right about a core value, let's talk about that and get on the same page. Make sure we tell our people every quarter, make sure that quarterly state of the company address happens and so forth. It's again, there's work, but if we can, it's pretty simple when you lay it out. Today we're going to do this. Today we're going to do this. At the end of the quarter, this should be done. And it's meant to make your company transparent so you can start seeing the imperfections because that's what's holding you back. And you said you want to fix it. So let's get down and dirty and let's start fixing it. And again, the tools are the way. They just have to be used with caution. We don't start with LMA because we have all the foundational tools to lead into first. They inevitably say, why didn't you talk about this earlier? I'm like, because you weren't ready.
Oh yeah, I wasn't saying start with it. I was just
business.
it was reflecting on the fact that
no.
as you do these things, you're actually starting to check some of those boxes.
Yes. And even the fun part is we look at the toolbox in the first quarterly, and we go through it. And I think I mentioned earlier on the leadership team, check the boxes of everything all the tools you've seen that you know that you use, that you're using. And it's a good reflection on myself of, oh, maybe they said they got it, but they're not really get it. Or they heard the word once. I didn't say it often enough. I have to do a better job of that to keep that top of mind. And again, that's another way we check our progress. How did we do? Is it resonating with them? Are they actually using it? Also, we check when they IDS. If they're not using the tools IDS, that means they're not connecting the dots right there, with the intention that when their teams start IDS and their departments are IDSing, they can start connecting the dots.
Got it. So when you say that, does that mean the solution to any problem ought to be found in either the scorecard measurable, the accountability chart, a rock? Is that how you mean using the tools when you IDS?
When you're IDS, yeah. So when you're IDSing and saying, and ideally from the top, the first step is the model. What's the issue? Where does it fit in one of the 6 key components? Oh, what's the tool that's in there? Is it a people issue? Is it a people analyzer question? Have we done the people analyzer? No. Would that give us some insight? Yes. Go do that. That's the solve for that issue for right now. And you come back and it's still an issue. Now we're talking, are they actually GWC in the seat? Then that it allows us to focus our conversation on maybe what's the root cause rather than speculation and recreating the wheel. And also in the accountability chart, we say, whose issue is this and where does it fall in the accountability chart? It falls in finance. Has somebody talked to that person? No. Okay. We don't talk about, we think, we feel in here. We talk about experiences and facts. So I've seen teams 45 minutes talk about what they think and feel about a vendor because they haven't called them back. And I said, has anybody called that vendor? And they each look at each other. I'm like, no. the solve on that issue is call vendor and tell them what you're upset about and see if that gets solved. But that can happen with even great teams, right? If we can allow them to look through the lens of EOS and the tools to help guide their business and solve their problems, more than likely they're going to get solutions faster, again, without reinventing the wheel. And then we can go deeper with the tools for them.